So today is April 10th, 2021. It has been over a year since the United States has had a WCA competition. The last WCA competitions were in March of 2020, March 14th to be exact. There were a few competitions in the United States on March 14th, and I believe there was one competition that was multiple days. It was either 2 days or 3 days, but the final day of that competition was on Sunday, March 15th, 2020. But ever since then, that was over a year ago, but ever since then, we have not had a single competition in this country. United States has been doing relatively badly with COVID-19, so that's why there hasn't been any countries since March 2020 in the United States. But I want to talk about in this video, when exactly do I think the next United States WCA competition will take place? I don't think I've ever actually shared screen on this channel whenever I've made videos, so this is really a change of things. This is really a different style of video. I might do this in the future if people like this video, but I would like to talk about when exactly I think there will be more WCA competition in this country, because this pandemic has been going on for over a year. We haven't had any WCA competitions for over a year. There's been many online competitions, like competitions where people can just compete from their home, and a lot of them have even had companies like the Cubicle sponsor them, but there hasn't been any official WCA competitions in the United States since March 14th and 15th, 2020. So those competitions took place right after this was declared a pandemic. I think it was March 11th that COVID-19 was officially declared a pandemic. And then right afterwards, that's when a lot of things started getting canceled. I think the WCA announced that until further notice, there were no competitions allowed. I think that was March 16th they made that announcement. So that was once again over a year ago. But since then, many countries have been able to have at least a couple competitions. Countries like China, countries like New Zealand, Australia, and a few other countries like Russia and Japan have upcoming competition here. In the United States specifically, though, as of now on the WCA website, on the competition list, there are two upcoming competitions that haven't been canceled yet. But if we go back to 2020, recent, I guess I should have clicked the past 2020. I'll do that now. Past 2020. So if we look at the list of competitions that took place in 2020, the last ones were before the pandemic really impacted things. The last ones were March 14th and March 15th. March 15th were the very last ones before the whole pandemic really set in. But after that, the next competition was in Denmark on July 11th to 12th. But the last competitions in the United States were March 13th through 15th on that weekend. The weekend right after it became a pandemic, but before things had really set in, I guess. But we haven't had any competition since then. Many other countries have had some competitions, like China has had many, Australia has had quite a few, same with New Zealand. Oceania has been doing pretty well with this pandemic. I know for a fact that Australia and New Zealand have both done pretty spectacular in terms of handling this pandemic. And China also has not really had much of a problem with COVID. They've been able to have many of these competitions, but the United States has done pretty badly with the virus in the past year, especially in the past few months. If you look at the number of cases and deaths we've had, I'm going to get to that in a bit when I talk about the future and what things might look like then. But just take a look at all the other countries that have been able to have competitions, but unfortunately, the United States has not been able to have any. Now, if we click this check mark, we can actually see all the canceled competitions, and oh boy, there are a ton of them. Not just in the United States, but in many other countries, but especially in the United States, there were many canceled ones. Like in November of 2020, there was supposed to be one in New Jersey, and in August, there was supposed to be one in Texas. I think there were many Texas competitions actually that were canceled. But in the spring of 2020, summer of 2020, these were all competitions that got announced before the pandemic began, so that's why you see so many of these canceled competitions in earlier 2020. But after the pandemic really set in, no new competitions really got announced, except in certain countries that were actually handling the pandemic pretty well. So if we go back to the upcoming competitions, so present, I don't think there's really going to be any canceled competitions now, considering the fact that been in this pandemic for over a year. I don't think really any competitions have been announced in countries that have been doing badly with the pandemic. But if you look here, June 25th through 27th, 2021, Western Championship 2021. I believe this was actually announced all the way back in 2019 or maybe early 2020 before the pandemic began. Same with Pennsylvania Championship 2021, which is August 2021. It's actually not clear whether or not either of these competitions will get canceled. I personally think that Western Championship will have to get canceled. We'll talk about it a bit more. We'll talk about it a bit more why I think that especially Western Championship will have to get canceled. Now, Pennsylvania Championship 2021, there's a chance it could be saved. There's a chance it could still happen, but I'm really not sure about that one. The thing about Western Championship is that it's only 2 months away. It's currently April 2021, and soon, in 2 months from now, it's going to be June. 2 months is definitely not enough time to have new WCA competitions in the US. I can tell you for a fact, we're not going to have any WCA competitions in the US in the first half of 2021, which means no new competitions before at least July. Even then, I think July is way too early even. But I would like to take a look at this WCA forum post that was made recently in the past month. So this one person was asking about when competitions could come back to the United States, and then WCA board member Bob Burton, he basically said that once the United States reaches below 27,000 cases per day, that's when they can start to consider having more competitions in the United States. He said 7-day average specifically, but I guess just overall having that few cases per day is the baseline for hosting new competitions, which means that until that happens, having any new competitions is completely out of the picture. So he goes on to clarify it a bit more in another comment. Actually, I think it's Kit Clement that clarifies it as WCA senior delegate. Basically, the WCA got the 27,000 figure from the fact that that would mean 8.5 new daily cases per 100,000 people, and he also clarified that Texas specifically is at around 5,000 cases per day, the 7-day average at the time that was made. But that's besides the point. The point is that the United States needs to reach below 27,000 cases per day in order for competitions to be even in the picture. Even then, it's unclear whether or not competitions could take place. But let's look at how the United States has been doing with this pandemic and what things are looking like now. So these are the worldwide numbers: 135 million cases. It's about to be 136 million, and we're about to reach 3 million deaths. Those are really high numbers. That's just alarming. That's just sad to think about. But even in the United States, numbers are also pretty bad. So currently, United States, we're about to reach 32 million cases. We're almost at 600,000 deaths, 575,000 to be exact. That's just really sad to think about. Over 500,000 people have died from this virus. It has been very, very damaging to this country overall, especially the United States. Many other countries have had problems, but the United States has surely had big problems with it. But I would like to talk about specifically the daily case count of this virus, because that's the benchmark by which WCA is deciding whether or not competition can take place. So this is what things have been looking like for the past year or so. So we started back in the spring. We were actually only at around 30,000 cases per day, or around 25,000 cases per day. So I guess at that point, it technically met the criteria, but just meeting the criteria itself is not enough to have competitions. That's just the general baseline. So competitions are completely out of the picture until we get below that. And then in the summer, we had 70,000 cases per day. Then things started to get a bit better in late summer, early fall, September, October, and then whoop, things got much, much worse. We had our peak in November through January. It got really bad earlier this year, January 2021. We had 300,000 cases per day, 270,000 cases per day, so that's actually 10 times the number of cases as the benchmark. But then things have started to get a lot better with spring coming around. A lot more people spend more time outdoors. That's one of the reasons why things have gotten better, but also the biggest reason is because of the fact that many people have now started to take the vaccine, and that's what I'm also going to talk about in a bit. So if we take a look at this now, if we take a look at the past month or so, what does the daily case count look like in the United States? It has been between 50,000 and 70,000 for the past month or so. So ever since we got over that bad peak, that was the third peak of this pandemic. The first one was in spring, second one was in the summer. Then we had the late fall, the early winter one, which was really bad. And then we started to improve from that. So now we're at around 60,000 cases per day on average. If we look at the current 7-day average, it's around 68,000 cases per day. That's the 7-day average, but that's still over double the benchmark that the WCA has in mind, which is 27,000. So until we can get to that 27,000 benchmark, there will 100% not be any competitions. So when exactly do I think we'll reach at least the 27,000 cases per day benchmark? I really cannot say for certain. I am not by any means an expert on this. I'm not even a WCA delegate. I'm not even involved with the competition organization process. I used to help out with organizing a bunch of competitions. I haven't really done that in a long time. But there are many things to take into consideration when deciding whether or not it's safe to hold competitions. On the one hand, you have the daily case count, but you also have to take a look at the vaccinations and how that's been going. So if we take a look at the Bloomberg.com's COVID vaccine tracker. By the way, this other website was worldometers.com. It's what I've been using for the past year to look at how COVID has been doing in the United States and across the planet. Now, if this website will actually load, I can take a look at this. It's slowly, okay, there we go. So, this has worldwide numbers, but I want to focus specifically on the United States. So, as of now, 27.7% of the United States population has been covered, and this is how the vaccination numbers have been comparing with the COVID numbers. So as vaccination numbers got better, so did the COVID-19 numbers. No surprise there. Vaccines work. But also look at this. So 34.5% of the US population, just over a third, has gotten at least one dose of the vaccine, while 20.5% of the population have gotten both doses. I'm actually part of the 20.5% of United States people that have gotten both doses. I got my second dose a few weeks ago, so I'm actually fully vaccinated now. So over a fifth of the United States is fully vaccinated, and this Bloomberg vaccine tracker also has a prediction of when we'll reach herd immunity, to where the majority of the United States population will actually receive both doses of the vaccine or be fully vaccinated. I know with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you only need one dose to be fully vaccinated, but Pfizer and Moderna, which is what most people have been taking, each require 2 doses. So it's somewhere on this website. They have like a prediction of when we'll reach herd immunity. I'm trying to find it. So that's New York specifically. It'll take 2 months, but I want to find the overall United States numbers. I think I have to scroll up a bit. Where is it? Is this it? Yeah, this is it. So, latest vaccination rate, 3 million doses per day. That's actually around 1% of the population, a little less than that. That's receiving a dose of the vaccine per day. That's great news, I think, because we started out at only around 1 million doses per day. So it's great that we've basically tripled that. So according to this vaccine tracker, it'll take around 3 more months. So 3 months from today, which is April 2020, that's July 2021, sorry. I still can't get over the fact completely that it's 2021. 2020 felt like 5 years long. So July 2021 is when we can expect to cover 75% of the population with the vaccine. But there's also another thing to take into consideration, and that is the age of WCA competitors and the age at which you can receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, if you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine, depending on which vaccine it is, if you want to take the Pfizer vaccine, you have to be at least 16 years old. If you want to take Moderna or Johnson & Johnson, you have to be at least 18 years old. So no matter what vaccine you take, you have to be at least 16 years old. But here's the thing. If you take the average age at most WCA competitions, that average age is going to be below 16 years old. I can say from personal experience, I guess, that generally most WCA competitors are below the age of 16. Most of the time, competitors are not above 16. So the majority of WCA competitors, I don't really have the WCA doesn't keep track of birthdays. They keep track of it, but it's not publicly available. So I can't say for a fact that the majority of competitors are below the age of 16, but I'm just talking from personal experience that most WCA competitors are below 16 years old. Personally, I've been to 35 WCA competitions, and only 3 of those 35 were after I turned 16 years old. So most of my competitions were before I turned 16. I'm now 18, but I haven't been to a competition in the past year. I actually haven't been to a competition since I turned 17, so that's because of the pandemic. But my point is that most WCA competitors aren't even eligible for the vaccine yet. I've heard that Pfizer will soon be able to expand to 12 to 15 year olds, but even then, there's many competitors below the age of 12 but there's also a lot between the ages of 12 and 15. But that'll still take a few months longer, at least a couple months longer, for 12 to 15-year-olds to actually be eligible for the vaccine. So I don't think the rate at which vaccinations are being administered, I don't think that on its own is a good enough benchmark to determine when we can have competitions return to the United States. I think you also need to look at daily case count. So I've laid out all the facts here, all the facts that are available to me at this point. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but this is the general information that I think you need to make a somewhat accurate prediction. I'll just leave my prediction here now. I think that we're seeing fourth quarter of 2021 when we can maybe start seeing competitions return back to the United States. This is just my rough estimate. I'm not even a part of the WCA board or WCA delegate. I'm nothing like that. I don't make any of these decisions. I'm just an observer looking at statistics, looking at these different charts, and based on the data, giving my rough estimation on when I think competitions can return. So I think that it'll be the fourth quarter of 2021, so October, November, December 2021, that general range when we can maybe see competitions return to the United States. Because the Bloomberg Vaccination Tracker, they were basically saying that it'll be 3 more months till we reach herd immunity, but it'll also be a few more months before people below the age of 16 can even take the vaccine. So that's also taken into consideration. But also you have to look at the number of cases over time. So we're at 65,000 cases per day. I would expect that number to continue to go down like in the long term, but in the short term there's actually the chance that it could go up by a bit. There are some states currently that have experienced recent surges in the daily case count, mainly because of new variants of this virus, like the B117 virus that was first spotted in the United Kingdom. So those variants spread more easily, and that's one of the reasons why there has been more cases in certain states, and that might translate to nationwide surges. I hope not. We've already had 3 major waves of this pandemic. I don't want a fourth one in the United States. Even if we have a fourth one, though, I'm relatively optimistic in that it won't be nearly as bad as the third one, because a lot of people have taken the vaccine back in the third wave. Barely anyone had. And the vaccine even works on most of these variants, although some of the variants the vaccine is less effective against. The B117 variant, which is the most prevalent variant in the United States at this point, the vaccine is still mostly effective against this variant, so I'm relatively optimistic in the upcoming months that things won't get nearly as bad as this wave, but we still need to reach below that 27,000 cases per day threshold in order for competitions to even be in the picture, and I think that that'll happen in the final quarter of 2021. If not the final quarter of 2021, then I think maybe the first quarter of 2022 is when we can maybe see the first competition in the United States return. So if we look back at Western Championship and Pennsylvania Championship, I honestly don't think either of these are going to happen, now that I think about it. This definitely isn't happening. I'm 99% sure Western Championship is going to get canceled. I don't think we can reach the 27,000 cases per day threshold by June of 2021. I mean, maybe we could. It's only 2 months in the future and we're still at over double that number, but there's also the fact that more and more people are going to get the vaccine. It'll get closer and closer to reaching the herd immunity threshold, and that's just 3 months away, the herd immunity threshold. But even then, you have to consider that in 2 months from now, most 12 to 15 year olds and most people below the age of 16 won't have the vaccine yet. So I'm 99% sure that this competition will get canceled. I may be wrong on that. Things can change, but it's only 2.5 months away. That's not a lot of time, even with how quickly we're giving out vaccines. Now for Pennsylvania Championship 2021, I'm a little less certain on its cancellation. I would say I'm 75% certain that'll also get canceled, but I'm still not completely sure yet. These things change quickly, like a lot of predictions that predictions that experts have made on this topic of COVID-19 and what the future looks like, they have been wrong, not because they don't know what they're talking about, but because this is a virus, it's very volatile, things change quickly, so it's not really something that anybody can predict with complete certainty. I definitely cannot predict with complete certainty. I'm just giving my rough estimates. I'm giving my rough estimate that competitions can return to the US in the final quarter of 2021 or the first quarter of 2022. It could maybe be earlier than that. It could honestly also be later than that, but I think that the most likely scenario is very late 2021 or early 2022 when we see the first competitions return to this country. And I'm honestly excited for that. I'm looking forward to that. We haven't had any competitions in this country for over a year. I was already not attending competitions even before this pandemic. I've been busy with other things in my life, but I've been looking forward to attending a competition for a while now because I've gotten a lot faster at a couple events, but there's also many other events that I just completely quit. So there's a couple events where I can completely demolish my previous PRs, but there's also other events where I haven't improved at all. So it'll be interesting to see how not only me but other people also adjust to a competition environment when we haven't competed for over a year. So that'll be interesting to see. That's all I have for this video. It went on for over 20 minutes because I had quite a bit of talk about. For the first few minutes, I was just talking about like WCA competitions and what the WCA board had to say on this topic, but I also talked about vaccinations and the COVID-19 numbers, but that's all for this video. Let's see how spot on I was or how wrong I was. We'll find out in a few months from now.